As I reached the top of the stairs, the shadow moved down the hallway, its eerie presence sending chills down my spine. With trembling hands, I gripped the knife tighter, knowing that my life depended on what happened next. It was an ordinary night, and my parents had gone out for dinner, leaving me home alone. I was looking forward to a quiet evening, enjoying some movies in the peace and solitude of our house. The silence was comforting, a rare chance to unwind. The hours passed peacefully, and I lost myself in the world of the films I was watching. The house was calm, the only sounds coming from the television and the occasional creak of the settling building. Around midnight, as I was about to start another movie, I began to hear light footsteps upstairs. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, a byproduct of watching too many thrillers. But as I strained to listen, the footsteps grew louder and more distinct. My heart started to race. The logical part of my mind tried to dismiss the noise as the house settling or an overactive imagination. But the sound continued, steady and deliberate, as if someone was moving around upstairs. The fear began to take root, a cold knot forming in my stomach. I knew I had to investigate. Ignoring it would only make the fear grow. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and headed to the kitchen. I grabbed a knife, the cold metal reassuring in my trembling hands. I told myself it was just to feel safer, that there was nothing to be afraid of. With each step I took towards the stairs, my fear grew stronger. The footsteps had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to press down on me. I placed my foot on the first step, the wood creaking under my weight. I paused, listening for any sound, any indication of what was waiting for me upstairs. Slowly, I began to climb the stairs, each step a battle against the rising tide of fear. The hallway above was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of my room at the end. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, playing tricks on my eyes. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, and my grip on the knife tightened. I reached the top of the stairs, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure it could be heard throughout the house. The sense of dread was overwhelming, but I forced myself to move forward. As I reached the top of the stairs, I saw it. A shadow, darker than the surrounding darkness, moved down the hallway. It glided silently, its form indistinct and shifting. My heart leapt into my throat, and for a moment, I was frozen in place, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. The shadow seemed to be moving with purpose, its shape wavering like smoke. I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin, and a primal fear took hold of me. This was no trick of the light or overactive imagination. This was something real, something dangerous. In a blind panic, I turned and ran back to my room, slamming the door behind me. I locked it with trembling hands and backed away, keeping my eyes fixed on the door as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, my voice barely a whisper as I reported what I had seen. The police arrived quickly, their presence a small comfort in the face of my terror. They searched the house thoroughly, moving from room to room with professional efficiency. I stayed in my room, listening to their movements, hoping they would find something, anything, that could explain the shadow. But they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of an intruder. The house was as it had always been, calm and quiet. The officers reassured me that it was likely my imagination, heightened by the solitude and late hour. Their words did little to calm my nerves. The shadow I had seen was real. I was certain of it. The fear remained, a constant presence at the edge of my thoughts. I knew that whatever it was, it had been in my house, and it could return. The experience left a lasting mark on me. I couldn't shake the memory of the shadow on the stairs, its eerie movement, and the overwhelming fear it had instilled. The once comforting solitude of my home now felt like a trap, filled with unseen dangers. I vowed never to stay home alone at night again. The fear was too great, the memories too vivid. Even now, as I recount the story, I can feel the chills running down my spine, the sense of dread that still lingers. The shadow on the stairs remains a mystery, an unanswered question that haunts me. The house, once a place of safety and peace, now holds a dark secret, and every creak, every flicker of shadow reminds me of that night and the fear that will never truly fade. Think you can handle more? Here comes the next bone-chilling account. Subscribe and drop a comment if you're still watching. As the police searched the yard and found footprints near my window, I knew the image of the motionless man staring at my house would haunt me forever. I was 16 when my parents decided to go on a weekend trip, leaving me home alone for the first time. The idea of having the house to myself was thrilling. I felt a newfound sense of independence and excitement, ready to enjoy a quiet weekend on my own. The first night was calm. I spent the evening watching movies and chatting with friends online. The house was peaceful, and I relished the freedom of being alone. As the night wore on, I started to hear a strange noise coming from the yard. At first, I dismissed it as an animal or the wind rustling through the trees. But the noise persisted, a subtle rustling that set my nerves on edge. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to check it out. I moved towards the window, my heart beginning to race. The unease grew stronger with each step, the quiet night suddenly feeling ominous. When I reached the window, I hesitated. The noise had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I took a deep breath and peered outside, my eyes scanning the yard. To my horror, I saw a man standing by the fence. He was motionless, his eyes fixed on the house. He stood in the shadows, but I could make out his figure clearly against the dim light of the street lamp. His presence was unnerving, his stillness unnatural. A wave of fear washed over me. I was paralyzed, unable to look away. The man didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared, his gaze piercing and unrelenting. My mind raced with questions. Who was he? What did he want? I forced myself to move, grabbing my phone with trembling hands. I dialed the police, my voice barely a whisper as I reported what I was seeing. I tried to stay quiet, not wanting to alert the man to my presence. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow a potential threat. I kept my eyes on the man, fearing he might move or try to enter the house. The fear was suffocating. I felt vulnerable and exposed, the safety of my home shattered by the presence of this stranger. I tried to stay calm, but the terror was overwhelming. The thought of what might happen if he noticed me sent chills down my spine. Finally, I saw the flashing lights of the police car. Relief mingled with fear as the officers approached the house. I watched as they searched the yard, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The police conducted a thorough search of the yard and the surrounding area, but the man was gone. There was no sign of him, no indication of where he might have gone. The officers found footprints near my window, confirming that he had been there, watching me. They reassured me that everything was fine, that they would patrol the area and keep an eye out. But their words did little to calm my nerves. The fear remained, a constant presence in the back of my mind. Knowing that the man had been so close, that he had been watching me, filled me with a sense of dread. The house, once a place of safety, now felt vulnerable and exposed. The experience left a deep and lasting impact on me. I couldn't shake the memory of the man standing in the yard, his eyes fixed on the house. The fear of being alone at night became overwhelming, and I dreaded the thought of my parents leaving again. The image of the man in the yard haunted me. Every rustle outside, every creak of the house, brought back the fear. I kept the curtains closed and the doors locked, constantly on edge. We never found out who the man was or what he wanted. The unanswered questions only added to the fear. The sense of unease lingered, a shadow over my once peaceful home. Even now, the memory of that night sends chills down my spine, and the fear remains, a constant reminder of the man in the yard. Stay in your seat. The next horror story is just about to begin. Make sure to subscribe and share your scariest moment in the comments. As the police informed me that the call was coming from inside the house, my heart pounded with terror, knowing that someone had been lurking in the same place where I felt safest. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening. My parents were out of town, and I was home alone, enjoying the quiet. The house felt calm, and I relished the solitude, planning to spend the night watching movies and relaxing. The hours passed uneventfully, and I felt a sense of independence and freedom. Little did I know, the night was about to take a terrifying turn. Around 10 at night, the phone rang. It startled me, but I answered it, expecting it to be my parents checking in. Instead, there was only silence on the other end. Deep, unnerving silence. I waited for a moment, then hung up, thinking it must have been a wrong number or a prank. Minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, the silence was broken by heavy breathing. My name was whispered in a raspy voice. My blood ran cold, and a wave of fear washed over me. I hung up immediately, my hands shaking. The sound of my name being whispered lingered in my mind, sending chills down my spine. I felt vulnerable and exposed, knowing someone was out there, watching me. The voice was low and menacing, a stark contrast to the peaceful evening I had been enjoying. Panic set in. I grabbed the phone and called the police, my voice trembling as I explained the situation. They assured me they would trace the call and send officers to my house. I locked all the doors and windows, my heart racing with fear. The wait for the police felt like an eternity. Every creak and shadow seemed amplified, my imagination running wild. When the police finally arrived, they informed me that the call had been traced and was coming from inside the house. Terror gripped me. The idea that someone could be inside my home, hiding in the shadows, was almost too much to bear. The police began to search every room, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they moved methodically through the house. Despite their thorough search, the police found no one. No sign of forced entry, no indication that anyone had been there. The house was empty, yet the fear remained. The thought that the intruder could have left before the police arrived, or was still hiding somewhere, sent shivers down my spine. The officers reassured me, suggesting that it might have been a prank or a technical glitch. But their words did little to calm my nerves. The fear was too real, the experience too unsettling. The experience left a deep and lasting impact on me. The memory of the voice whispering my name and the knowledge that the call came from inside the house haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability and dread. Since that night, I've never answered the phone when I'm home alone. The fear of hearing that whisper again is too great. The unanswered questions, who it was, how they got inside, and what they wanted, continue to haunt me. Even now, the thought of that night sends chills down my spine. The voice on the phone remains one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. A constant reminder that the places we feel safest can sometimes hold the greatest dangers. Prepare yourself. The fear continues with our next haunting narrative. Subscribe and let us know in the comments what keeps you up at night. As the police searched the yard and found handprints on the window, my heart pounded with terror, knowing that the pale face staring at me had been watching for a long time. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening. My parents were out, and I was home alone, enjoying the quiet. I decided to watch some TV in the living room, relishing the rare solitude and the chance to unwind. The house was calm, the only sounds coming from the television. I felt safe and relaxed, completely unaware of the terror that was about to unfold. As I settled into my favorite spot on the couch, a strange sensation washed over me. It was as if someone was watching me. I shrugged it off, attributing it to my imagination, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. I tried to focus on the show, but my unease grew. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and a chill ran down my spine. Something was definitely not right. My eyes were drawn to the window, a sense of dread building within me. With a deep breath, I turned to look at the window, hoping to find nothing but the dark night outside. What I saw instead made my blood run cold. There, staring back at me through the window, was a pale, unknown face. The eyes were hollow and piercing, filled with a malevolent intensity. The skin was ghostly white, almost luminescent in the darkness. The face was devoid of emotion, a chilling mask that sent a wave of terror through me. I screamed, the sound echoing through the empty house. My heart raced, and panic took over. I bolted from the couch, running to lock all the doors and windows, my hands shaking with fear. The sinister face was seared into my mind, and I couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. I ran to the kitchen, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The image of the face was burned into my memory, its hollow eyes following me. I checked every lock, every window, making sure the house was secure. But no matter how many times I checked, the fear wouldn't leave me. In a state of panic, I grabbed my phone and called my parents, my voice trembling as I told them what had happened. They were concerned and immediately called the police, urging me to stay calm and safe until help arrived. I tried to steady my breathing, my mind racing with terrifying thoughts. The minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police, every creak and shadow in the house amplifying my fear. I kept my eyes on the windows, half expecting the face to reappear at any moment. The wait was agonizing. I felt trapped, my home no longer a sanctuary but a place of danger. I moved from room to room, double-checking the locks, trying to find a place where I felt safe. But the memory of that face, its hollow eyes staring into my soul, made it impossible to feel secure. Finally, the police arrived, their flashing lights illuminating the yard. Relief washed over me, but the fear remained. I watched as they approached the house, their presence a small comfort in the face of my terror. The police conducted a thorough search of the yard and the surrounding area, but the man was gone. There was no sign of him, no indication of where he might have gone. The officers found handprints on the window, clear evidence that someone had been there, watching me. They reassured me that everything was fine, that they would patrol the area and keep an eye out. But their words did little to calm my nerves. The fear remained, a constant presence in the back of my mind. The knowledge that the man had been so close, that he had been watching me, filled me with a sense of dread. The officers searched the house, checking every room, every closet. They found no one, but the handprints on the window were enough to confirm my fears. Someone had been there, staring at me through the glass, their presence a dark shadow over my sense of safety. The experience left a deep and lasting impact on me. I couldn't shake the memory of the face in the window, its hollow eyes and ghostly skin. The fear of being alone at night became overwhelming, and I dreaded the thought of my parents leaving again. I became hypervigilant, always checking the locks and keeping the curtains closed. The thought of being watched filled me with dread, the memory of that face a constant shadow over my sense of security. We never found out who the man was or what he wanted. The unanswered questions only added to the fear. The sense of unease lingered, a shadow over my once peaceful home. Even now, the memory of that night sends chills down my spine, and the fear remains, a constant reminder of the man in the yard. But wait, there's more. Brace yourself for the next spine-chilling tale. And if you're enjoying the scares, don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments. As the police found signs of an intruder in the basement, my heart pounded with terror, knowing that someone had been hiding just below my feet, waiting for the right moment. My parents were away for a week, leaving me in charge of the house. I was excited about the responsibility, looking forward to a week of independence. The house was quiet and calm, and everything seemed to be going well. The first few days passed without incident. I enjoyed the peace and solitude, spending my time catching up on movies and books. The house felt like a safe haven, a place where I could relax and unwind. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard an unusual noise coming from the basement. It sounded like a faint shuffling, almost like footsteps. At first, I thought it might be the house settling or a draft causing something to move. But the noise continued, persistent and unsettling. Curiosity and a slight sense of unease prompted me to investigate. I grabbed a flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness as I made my way to the basement door. My heart began to race, each step amplifying my fear. When I reached the basement door, I noticed it was slightly ajar. This was strange, as the door was always kept closed. A chill ran down my spine, but I knew I had to see what was causing the noise. I pushed the door open slowly, the creak of the hinges echoing in the silence. I descended the stairs, the flashlight shaking in my hand. The basement was dark and musty, the air thick with an unsettling stillness. Each step felt like an eternity, the anticipation of what I might find growing with every inch I moved closer. As I reached the bottom, I swept the flashlight around the room. The beam illuminated old boxes, cobwebs, and forgotten furniture. But then, I heard it, a heavy, labored breathing coming from the back of the basement. My heart skipped a beat, and a wave of terror washed over me. I aimed the flashlight towards the sound, but the beam flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I could see the faint outline of something, or someone, lurking in the darkness. Panic set in, and I knew I had to get out of there. Without a second thought, I turned and bolted up the stairs, the heavy breathing still echoing in my ears. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it, my hands trembling. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, my voice shaking as I described what had happened. The wait for the police was agonizing. Every noise, every creak of the house, sent my anxiety into overdrive. I tried to stay calm, but the fear was overwhelming. The thought of someone being in the basement, so close yet hidden, was terrifying. Finally, I heard the sirens. Relief washed over me as the police arrived and began their search. I watched anxiously as they descended into the basement, hoping they would find the intruder and put an end to this nightmare. The police conducted a thorough search of the basement, their flashlights illuminating every corner. They found signs that someone had been there, footprints in the dust, a few items out of place, and a makeshift sleeping area hidden behind some old boxes. It was clear that the intruder had been living there, hiding in the shadows. The officers reassured me, explaining that the intruder had likely fled when they heard me coming. They promised to increase patrols in the area and advised me to stay with someone until my parents returned. Despite their reassurances, the fear remained. The evidence of the intruder's presence was undeniable. Knowing that someone had been in my home, hiding in the basement, sent chills down my spine. The house no longer felt like a safe haven. It felt violated, and the sense of security was shattered. The experience left a deep scar. The memory of the heavy breathing, the open basement door, and the signs of the intruder haunted me. I couldn't shake the fear of being alone in the house, the knowledge that someone had been so close. I decided to stay at a friend's house for the rest of the week. The fear of returning to the house alone was too great. I needed to feel safe, to be around people who could offer comfort and security. Even now, the memory of that night sends chills down my spine. The basement, once just a storage space, has become a place of fear and dread. The experience has changed the way I see my home, and the fear of the intruder remains a constant shadow over my sense of safety.